First up, we have Fit for a King with Lonely God. The 8th album from this long-running Texas metalcore band is actually my first foray into the band. I've been familiar with the name and I've known about them for quite some time, but never actually took the plunge until now, and I must say I am pleasantly surprised. While the sound is more mainstream than I originally imagined, there are plenty of moments that hit that metalcore side that makes everything come together, and I also imagine that they were a lot heavier back in the day, and now they're kind of focusing on the mainstream side, though I could be wrong. But also, don't get me wrong, this is very much of the 2020s metalcore side that has been focusing on that mainstream side, and it does remind me of bands like I Prevail, Currents, Bury Tomorrow, Bleed From Within, and more. It's a nice change of pace for someone of my normal taste in music, and it shows what could be done in this style. The production is as pristine as you would imagine for this type of music, and the songwriting is refined, and they left just the best possible riffs and songs that the band could bring to the table. While this won't be for everyone, especially not everyone that checks out my list, this is for those that want to see what the mainstream metal sound is up to in 2025. There's a lot to like here, and hey, you might like it as well. Next up, we have K.O. with Every Rock, Every Half-Truth Under a Reason. The 11th album from Toby Driver and a slew of members from Modeling of the Well is keeping true to what I would expect from Toby Driver, which is not having a single idea what he's going to be doing next. Just in K.O., you have albums that sound like a continuation of Modeling on the Well, which was a very experimental avant-garde metal. You have double disc concept albums, you have Doom albums, you have albums that sound like the Blade Runner soundtrack, and so much more. It is very hard to recommend K.O. to someone who's just looking for a particular sound, as the band kinda does it all. With the latest album, there's no traditional songwriting going on here. It hits levels of both extremes and minimalist territories that is a pure wonder to behold. When it's minimal, there is such a haunting atmosphere that's going on, it feels like a demon is getting ready to possess your soul. When the album gets to more extremes, it is a sonic force that can obliterate your sound system if you're not careful. And when the album gets a little more, I guess what you could call normal, the band is doing what I would expect from them for their left to the left of the center approach. 3/5 of the album really takes that minimal approach, and there's barely any drums or percussion on it. And the other 2/5 does have drums and percussion, but they are not used in a way that you would normally hear in rock and metal. It's more kind of like soundtrack to like a movie or a film score than it does anything else. Simply put, this album is not for everybody, and may push the boundaries of what your tolerance for these particular styles of heavy music can be. I mean, anything Toby Driver does is not going to be for everybody, and you gotta be in a particular niche to really truly appreciate it. But if you want to hear Toby Driver explore another new direction that he hasn't really explored like this with this particular K.O. album, give this one a proper listen. It's really nice to hear him continue on to show his repertoire in so many different ways, and I can't wait to see what's next. Now we have Gnosis with Genosis, and I just got what he was going for here. The former frontman of Crystal Lake is back with his debut album under his new band, and I'm enjoying what's going on here. It can hit some of the heaviest moments of metalcore, hardcore, deathcore, this kind of stuff you'd expect, but then come these emotional moments that were always my favorite moments whenever I've heard Crystal Lake, but it's also done in a different variety. Then there's these new layers of experimentation that feels kind of off the wall, kind of wonky, but they work in context for the rest of the album. It makes for such an intriguing listen from start to finish. The production is, sorry for the pun, crystal clear and punchy, and the songwriting, while it might take a listen or two to be able to grasp everything at hand, when you do, it clicks hard and it works magnificently. I'm not really sure who I could compare this to, as this isn't really in my wheelhouse, but Rio did some amazing stuff in Crystal Lake, and I do hear a lot of that going on, but I also hear moments of Deftones, Stray from the Path, even some Linkin Park. And if you can dig what's going on with that with Gnosis, well, I know it's not for everyone. It could be for you. And finally, for brand new albums out today that I'm covering, we have Moths with Septum. The third album from this Puerto Rican progressive band is quite the trip. Every time that you think you know where a particular song is going, they will turn on the dime and go into a completely different direction. The music covers so many genres as well, from the aforementioned progressive to doom to death metal to jazz, and somehow makes it all cohesive. The music matches up to the concept of the album, which is, of course, the 7 Deadly Sins. The production feels raw and real, given that really really early day bareness feel behind it all, like Red Album, Blue Record, if you know what I'm talking about. And the songwriting is off the charts with how it can be so diverse, but still make everything click. I hear as much Mastodon and the aforementioned bareness as I do King Crimson, as I do Opeth or even Porcupine Tree. Like I said, it is quite the trip, and for those who dare to hear something different on this side of prog, you really should give Mods your proper attention and see if they're for you. And now for everything that I missed along the way, starting with a band name and an album title that I know I'm going to butcher, and I'm so sorry for getting this wrong, and Fuglier with A Cullabeth. Did I get that close? I really hope I did. The sophomore album and the first album in 17 years from this New England, now duo, is one of the finest displays of symphonic black metal I've heard in 2025 so far. The music is majestic, and it gives you this otherworldly feel behind it all, going deep into the realms of Tolkien's Silmarillion and showing what it's all about. The songs are epic in length, ranging from almost 12 minutes at its shortest to almost 22 minutes at its longest. And these don't feel like traditional metal songs. I mean, you're not hearing verse, chorus, repeats on this one. Despite the obvious black metal tendencies that's going on, this is written much more like a symphony piece and full-on orchestration. You could easily get lost in this album, close your eyes, and feel like you've been transported right into Middle Earth. The production is somehow both raw and grand at the same time, which really puzzles me how that works, but I love the final product. And the songwriting, again, I can't get over its rich, rewarding listening experience. This is for those that have wanted a grand symphonic take on Tolkien's work, and I think that they really nailed it to an absolute T. If you want an album that is the living embodiment of the word grand, check out what this band has to offer. Now we have Anger Machine with Human Error. The sophomore album from this thrash metal band from the Netherlands is an ugly look in the mirror to human society, and honestly, we kinda need that right now. While there are enough tongue-in-cheek moments to not make you completely feel depressed, there's enough going on here with its lyrical content of the state of the world that will just make you realize the mess that we are all in, and how almost all of us kinda contribute to it on a daily basis. If there is an upside to all of this, the music is perfect thrash from beginning to end. It hits all the bits that I love about the genre and it doesn't let up. Whether it's full guns blazing or a mid-tempo stomper, Anger Machine knows how to write for the song and spread their message of how truly terrible all of us are. The production is exactly what it needs to be to make the music stand out even more. If you want a thrash album that more than lives up to the band name and sheds light on the album title, make sure you check out the brand new album from Anger Machine. Now we have what I'm pretty sure I'm going to get wrong, but I'm going to try all the different ways that I think it could be pronounced. Baal. It's something like that, B-A''A''L, but the fine line between heaven and here. The sophomore album from this UK band is my first foray into the band, but I am blown away. This hits so many levels of emotion musically and hits you even harder with the vocal delivery. Mixing their blend of atmospheric black metal and post-metal fused together to create that sound of post-black, but it's also so much more than that. The music delivery is devastating, whether it goes into the full black metal fury or it scales things back and lets the notes shine in their sludgy and post-metal sides. The production is in that right sweet spot of raw and clean, and the songwriting just grips you from beginning to end. If you want a band that knows how to channel their inner Death Heaven, Rollo Tomasi, Inter Arma, and even Cult of Luna, you need to see what these guys are all about. Now we have Crimson Shadows with Whispers of War. The long-awaited third album from this Canadian melodeath and power metal band is back after 9 years with Whispers of War, and it's easily their finest work. Everything you love about this combination of genres is here, and they somehow got even heavier and more melodic at the same time. The production is stellar, and everyone shines throughout the entire album. There's no major shifts in the sound, it's exactly what you'd expect the band to be with their melodeath and power metal tendencies, but it's just that the intensity has been turned up to 11, and the melodies have become even more sing-along moments than ever before, and arguably some of the most you'll hear in 2025. If you enjoy the likes of Brimir, Children of Bodom, Kalma, and especially Early Day Dragon Force, you are doing yourself a disservice by missing out on this album any further. Give this a spin right now. Now we got Erebor with Infinitus Somnium. The epic sophomore album from this UK band is a fantastic display of genre bending, but never truly losing their identity. With only 3 songs and coming in at almost 43 minutes, I wasn't kidding when I called this one epic. In fact, there's 3 of them on here. It explores so many styles and genres while still maintaining that progressive death metal and tech death sound that were on display on their debut album, but even more grand. You'll have your moments that sound like The Faceless, Inanimate Existence, Fallujah, but you'll also have these moments that really remind you of the melodic sides of Obscura, Cynic, Black Crown Initiate that really tie everything together and makes everything shine. The production is a bit on the raw side, but it still hits you as a tech death album should, and the songwriting, while overwhelming for some, is right in my wheelhouse for this style. If you want a spectacular look at what can be achieved by blending tech death and progressive death metal together, Erebor has put out potentially the best example of it in 2025. Now we have Exfamon with Odyssey of Fate. The debut album from this Cali band is a wonderful display of the fun side of power metal, and honestly we kinda need that right now in 2025. Never dipping below the mid-tempo mark, and if they do, it's very short on this album. The album is a full-on assault of power metal from its twin guitar attack, double bass frenzies, and the soaring vocals. The musicianship on this album is jaw-dropping, and the songs do exactly what you want them to in this particular style of power metal. Match all of that together with a production style that is clear but just raw enough, and you have a winning power metal album in 2025. This may go under the radar for some, but don't let that happen to you if you are a power metal fan. Check this one out and listen to the glory that is Exfamon. Now we have Grave Witch with their self-titled album. The self-titled album from this Oregon trio hits so very hard in just the right ways. Their raw produced blend of black and thrash hits both genres perfectly and adds a sinister flair to everything. Again, the production is quite raw on this one, kind of feeling like a black metal demo from like 1992, but that also adds to the black magic of this album. It hits so many levels of intensity and the atmosphere that you just wouldn't get if this had a better production style. 10 songs and almost 44 minutes makes this a blast of black and thrash worth every single second. If you enjoy the likes of Hybrid Nightmares, Skeleton Witch, Haunted Funeral, and Destroyer 666, Grave Witch is made for you. Now we have Joviak with Autofiction Part 1, Shards. I've been meaning to cover this one for a few months now, and I finally got to it, but I'm so happy to be able to do it now. The third album from this Finnish prog band came out back in May, but it is more than worthy of your attention now, combining my favorite elements of prog while adding these really cool elements of like melodic rock, AOR, and even some more poppy moments to create a sound that knows when to go prog and when to go prog metal. Imagine Dream Theater, Porcupine Tree, Giant, Haken, and Pain of Salvation all rolled into one band, and you have a good idea of what Joviak is going for here. Also add in their own inspirations, and you have an imaginative prog album that feels like it can be for anyone, from the most try-hard prog fan that like I used to be, to the most fun-going 80s melodic rock fan that I'm slowly becoming, and everyone in between. If this sounds like it might hit for you, Joviak can make it big. So let's try to make that happen, shall we? Up now we have Late Night Savior with Rebirth. The third album from this band out of Utah caught my attention with this album, but upon listening to the previous works, this does kind of feel like a rebirth for the band. No pun intended, but maybe. While the core sound of the band is fully intact, it's that alternative metal sound with just the right kind of poppy moments, those sucker punchy hooks, and definitely made for mainstream radio. The band has gotten heavier with their sound and even grander in their production. This is easily their best produced album to date. I can hear elements of bands like Evans Blue, Breaking Benjamin, and other bands that remind me of the mid-2000s, but it does have enough of the 2025 modern rock radio sound that is going on so well. I appreciate that the band has gotten heavier in their tones and their style, but they still make hooky moments, and it makes them even more memorable that way. I wish more bands in the FM rock variety would take this approach. I'd probably listen to my local rock station if they did that, but I digress. For a predominantly metal guy, I am so intrigued by what this album can bring, and I can't get enough of it. Maybe you'll have the same reaction? Why don't you give this one a shot? Now we have Marasme with Fell. The fourth album from the Spanish band hit me like a ton of bricks, and I'm all here for it. A sound that combines the best of sludge, post, hardcore, even some black metal to make for an album that knows how to show off their aggressive side and when to let the emotions soak through. The production hits just at the right spot, and the songs, they hit no matter where they are, whether it's on the shorter side or they're making a 9-minute epic. I can hear bands like Neurosis, Cult of Luna, Year of No Light throughout all of this, but they also add their own herbs and spices to create their own sound, and it's a wonderful thing to hear. If you need a post-album like this right now, something that can really hit near the hardcore black metal side of things but know when to pull it back, check out Marzume and see what they're all about. Next up, we have My Last Promise with A Funeral of Being. And a bit of a trigger warning here, this is DSBM. If you know the initials, you know what I'm talking about. The debut album from this Ukrainian one-woman DSBM band has all of the feels behind it, and it never lets up with the emotions. This is a tearjerker of an album, and in 2025, that can be some of the most cathartic stuff that you could need. You hear the pain in every single note, from the cleans, the screams, and the music behind it all. It's hard to recommend this genre because of the subject matter at hand, but when you're someone suffering from mental health demons like myself, this can be a release that you need to hear to feel okay. As bonkers as that might sound to someone who doesn't understand, but trust me, there are those of us like that out there. The production is a bit on the better side for the genre, which I was kind of surprised by because a lot of it not really good on the production side, but this is really nice. And the songwriting couldn't feel more inspired, and unfortunately, being in the Ukraine right now, there's a lot to be depressed about. But if you enjoy the likes of Sylvain, Anilear, and Shining Sweden, see if My Last Promise does anything for you. Now we have Ophélion with The Jaunt. The debut album from this UK prog band featuring past and present members of Darkest Hour, Brave Ride, and Vortex has created such an earnest take on classic progressive metal, but it's also updated enough for the 21st century to include the heavier ends of the progressive death metal side to create a sound that really feels like it's kind of tailor-made for my taste. The production feels sonically pleasing to the ears, and the musicianship on hand is beyond stellar. In what feels like a grand mix of Dream Theater, Opeth, Gojira, and Haken, this defines what prog metal can and potentially should be in 2025. This is not an album to sleep on. Seriously, if you love the dark side of progressive metal, progressive death metal, you need to see what all of that is about with Ophélion. Next up, we have Roulette with Go. Having been around for almost 40 years now, and having such a hard time with all of it, it is really hard to be able to maintain that momentum of how you originally started as. Thankfully, in 2025, there have been many examples in the melodic rock and AOR realms that have proven that you can be as good as you ever were, if not better. This is definitely the case here with Roulette, a Swedish band who's just put out their sophomore album, and their first since 2019. Yeah, you heard that right. The band has been around for 40 years, but they've only had 2 albums in their discography, and it's only several years apart. This is some of the most earnest and audibly pleasing melodic rock I've heard all year. This is clearly a band that has been through the ringer through all the ups and downs of being in a band, trying to make things work, but still, it wasn't until the tail end of the 2010s where they finally got their debut album out, and with Go, the band still has that wonderful charm to their music, and you can hear that passion that they had even in the past from their singles and their compilation albums still in this music. But everything is just updated enough to tug at the right heartstrings and become earworms for days. The production is outstanding and the songs are worth spinning over and over again. We have been rewarded handsomely in 2025 when it comes to melodic rock and AOR, and Roulette has given us another slab of everything that you want it to be in this style. Seriously, give this one a listen and enjoy. Next up is Split Chain with Motion Blur, and it's not very often, especially someone like me who's already covered almost 650 albums this year, that you discover a new genre, and that genre for me is Dreamo. It is a blend of shoegaze and emo, and as odd as it sounds to someone with my taste, this is something I didn't know I needed, but I really love it actually. From the 90s alternative production to the mix of grunge, shoegaze, dream pop, emo, and alternative metal, this hits me in a way I never would have expected. It feels like Deftones, Mew, and Paleskin got together to create a new but familiar sound. I still need to digest it a little bit more, but every time that I put it on, it hits me in all the right ways, and it puts me in this trance-like state that I really, really enjoy. If you want to hear something like this, especially for a debut album, it's an incredible thing to witness, basically the birth of a new genre, at least to me, and just having it overwhelm you like this on a debut album. And if you want to hear something like that, you need to see what Split Chain is all about. Now we have Twilight Aura with Believe. The third album in 30 years from this Brazilian progressive power metal band is a welcome thing to see in 2025. Combining what makes progressive power metal sound work so very well, especially with that Brazilian style that you'll see what I'm getting at in a second, done in such earnest and it's still fun of real creative endeavors is no easy thing to achieve, but that's exactly what happened here. The album is also filled with so many guest spots from the likes of Jeff Scott Soto, Felipe of Angra, and even Andre Matos has vocals that appear on this album from an original Skyscraper demo. In fact, they take that song and rework it into a Twilight Aura song. The production is a bit raw, but it still hits hard, and it feels like it came right out in 1995 in the best way possible. The songs on hand are quite inspired, and it feels like a nostalgia trip, but I'm happy to take that trip. I'm so happy with this album. I love that it's come together this way, and it's an amazing experience from beginning to end. If you love your 90s Brazilian progressive power metal, basically Angra, check out what Twilight Aura is all about. And finally today we have Virtual Symmetry with Veils of Illumination. The fourth album from the Swiss prog metal band is one endearing album, and it is filled with as much jaw-dropping music as it does emotion. The production is top-notch and the musicianship on display from everyone involved is staggering. It reminds me of everything that I love about 90s progressive metal in one tight package. Like, seriously, it does feel like a mix of early-day Dream Theater and modern-day Circus Maximus in the best of ways. I'll even throw some Seventh Wonder in there as well. Even with having almost a 20.5-minute epic on this album, it doesn't feel like there's a single wasted second on this album at all. That is my kind of prog through and through, and I simply can't get enough of this one. If you want this kind of prog metal, you need to hear Virtual Symmetry. You'll be so glad that you did. First up, we have Cemetery with Thoughts on Life and Death. In this German band's 35th year, the band has only put out their debut album back in 2019. Thankfully, in 2025, they have returned with their 90s death metal assault. Remember, it's all about quality, not quantity. With their sophomore album, Cemetery has put out a 50-minute concept album about the rise of a totalitarian regime and the downfall of the individual, if that doesn't sound familiar. But yeah, the music more than matches the concept and hits quite hard. Rather than just being a barrage of death metal, Cemetery adds just the right amount of melody, harmony, and proggy moments to make the music more vast and expressive, and it works to their advantage. The heavier parts feel heavier from it, and the other segments showcase their versatility in such a great way. The production feels like that early 90s death metal goodness, and they make it work to their advantage. Overall, a very depressing album from the realities that can come from a concept album like this, and just reality of 2025, but at least the music more than makes up for it with a fun listening experience from beginning to end. If you need your love of death, pestilence, and even some early day Opeth, check out Cemetery. Next up, we have Dreamwake with The Lost Years. One of the best examples of showcasing what is possible with genre bending in the mainstream sound is here with Dreamwake. The sophomore album from this New England band feels like an American version of the band One Morning Left, combining the best elements of metalcore, 80s synthwave, and they create their own sound with it. Whether they are focusing more on the breakdowns or they're letting their Vice City vibes fly, Dreamwake is making some undeniably catchy songs, and they are not afraid to experiment with it. The production is pristine and it feels like it fits like a glove. So much of the lyrical content for the album focuses on mental health from the outside and the inside, and as someone who suffers from that as much as I do, it feels like an extra punch in the gut, but it also feels like such a great cathartic experience. I always appreciate an earnest take on these struggles. Match that up with some killer music and you have one of my favorite metalcore albums of the year. This won't be for everybody, especially those who normally check out my list, but this is more than worthy of at least a listen to see if it's right for you. This hit me like a ton of bricks, and it just might for you as well. Now we have Lord of the Lost with Opus Noir, Volume 1. This is my first foray into this long-running German band, and it just so happens to be their 10th album, but I am floored by what I'm hearing. This industrial-fused gothic metal band is endlessly catchy, and it gets stuck in your head for days. I truly appreciate how they can combine these genres and never feel self-indulgent, and they focus on writing the best quality songs that they can. This is the first of a trilogy of new albums, and it has me excited to see where the next two albums will go. The production couldn't be better, and the guest spots, which I won't ruin here, fit so very well and only benefit the songs. Overall, I love what I'm hearing, and I need to go back and check out their previous material, and they have 9 more albums to check out in the past, so I'm kinda kicking myself for never checking them out sooner, and if you're like me, after one listen, you'll probably feel the same way. Next up, we have Sinsanum with In Devastation, the third album from this international powerhouse featuring past and present members of Mayhem, Seth, Loud Blast, Creator, and Doth have recruited Joey Jordison's drum tech to take over the helm for the drums and help create that next slab of their blend of groove-infused black and death metal. This band has never been conventional, and it pulls influences from all over the place, and from their own places as well. You can hear so much of the black and death metal tendencies as you hear some Slipknot thrown in at particular moments, making this stand out from other bands in the genre. Hearing this much groove and tenacity going on amongst the brutal moments may feel like a culture shock to some, but it does make sense the more you listen to it. I'd argue this is the band's most experimental album today, and arguably their saddest. The production album is so heavy and punchy and it never lets up, even when it gets into more mellow moments. While this album may take a little bit to digest, it is worth it to hear what is on offer here, and it helps so much with the grief of loss that everyone will experience at some point in time. If you want to hear that kind of catharsis in a more experimental style of black and death metal, check out what Sinsanum is all about. Now for everything that I missed along the way, starting with Atomic Witch with Death Etiquette. The sophomore album from this Ohio band is a pulverizing release. Their blend of death metal and thrash metal makes for such a sinister take on both genres, creating an album that feels like the best of both worlds. While I will admit straight up that the vocals will not be for everyone, there is a lot of high-pitched shrieks going on with this one. I think it really adds to the charm and it makes the band name work even better in context. The production feels like a great 1989 mix of the production of Morbid Angel and Testament combined. The songs are full-on assaults in the best of ways. This is how you make death thrash exciting in 2025, and one of the best examples of it in 2025. If you need that kind of combination, do not skip out on Atomic Witch. Now we have Autumn Nostalgia with Metanoia. The third album from the Slovakian band is a sensational slab of atmospheric pulse metal that hits hard and pulls on the heartstrings. Musically, the music goes all over the post-black realms, hitting into the territories that you'd expect from the genre, but it's also done with such frailty to it all, making everything feel a bit more hopeless and full of despair. That is a great thing when it comes to this genre, and especially when it comes to the vocal delivery and the lyrics. There is so much feeling of what could have been and regret that fills this music, and that's what makes it hit that much harder. The production is quite raw, but not unlistenable. It adds a little more to the emotional emptiness of it all. But if you enjoy the likes of Early Day Unrequited, Alcest, and Death Heaven, you'll find something to love about Autumn Nostalgia. Next up is Black Knight with The Tower. The fourth album in 27 years from this heavy metal band out of the Netherlands is such a fun listen. It is filled with that 70s, 80s, and 90s heavy metal sound that is heavier than glam, slower than power metal, and it hits this groove that you just don't expect. The production feels like it's pure 80s, and the musicianship on hand is an awesome thing to hear. If you're looking for a band that can channel their inner Accept, Annihilator, Mystic Prophecy, and even Deep Purple, check out what Black Knight is all about. I think they have a lot to offer. Now we have Centuries of Decay with a monument to decay. The sophomore album from this Canadian band is a jaw-dropping display of what can be done in progressive death metal. This is a monolithic release that knows how to focus on the heaviest aspects of their sound, all while adding the right flourishes to make the more progressive elements to create a hauntingly beautiful album. The production is so slick, but it has just enough raw feeling behind it, so you know that this is the real deal. Musically, it's a whirlwind of sound that floors over you, and only lets up the momentum enough to let you catch your breath before getting pummeled all over again. This truly does feel like the progressive death metal sides of Edge of Sanity, Enslaved, and Gorgira combined. Do not sleep on this one if you're looking for some of the best progressive death metal of 2025. Now we have Connect the Circle with Wolf in the Sky. 4 albums into this Norwegian progressive metal band's career, and the band is continuing to explore more of what is possible and broadening their sound for the best. I can hear so many influences of proggy styles and bands throughout this, and it makes a longtime prog nerd like myself very happy. The production is so clean and polished, and the songwriting goes from some of the most somber tones to the most left-of-center quirky moments to hard-driven heavy riffs all in the turn of a dime. It's an odd thing to hear Dream Theater, Spock's Beard, Arion, and the Deer Hunter into one formation, but that's what I get out of this one. It's quite the trip for any prog fan, and I couldn't recommend it more. This is how you keep prog exciting in 2025. Now we have Coherence with Daydream. The debut album from this Gothenburg band hits this itch that I didn't know needed to be scratched. It hits this super melodic side of Melodeath, making that work with 2000s melodic metalcore and more mainstream elements to create this earnest and triumphant look at how you fuse these genres together in 2025. The production is a bit raw, especially on the mastering side, but the rest is made up for by its musical ability and the songwriting at hand. It feels like this grand mix of Mutiny Within, Breaking Benjamin, and the middle era of In Flames. Basically anything from Clayman to Come Clarity. Coming in at 10 tracks in just about 39 minutes, this is an album that gives you all of their power and it still leaves you wanting more. I can't wait to see where they go from here. This is some quality work. Now we have Death Reapers with Thirst for Chaos. The debut album from this Polish band is a mesmerizing display of blending the past and the present. From its ferocious vocal display to its astonishing songwriting and musicianship, this takes the ideas of melodeath, thrash metal, and more and turns them on their head. It hits in a way that feels so good for someone growing up on 90s melodeath as it would for someone just hearing the genre for the first time. The production is a bit raw, but it works for the style at hand. If you want a mix of bands such as At the Gates, Needless, Nightbearer, and As the Sun Falls, you need to check out what Death Reapers is all about. It just might be exactly what you need. And now we have what I hope I get right, Deciduous Forest, with Fields of Yore. If I got that wrong, I deeply apologize. The debut album from this Australian one-man band has blown me away with its intensity and its songwriting. Hitting the sweet spot of mainly focusing on atmospheric black metal, but adding these layers of symphonic synths on top of everything feels grand and triumphant in a genre known for sadness and grief. This is a dark album that is filled with dread, but still has this otherworldly feel behind it all to create what feels like a soundtrack to being lost in the universe. The production is stellar, especially considering how raw the genre usually tends to be, and the songwriting seals the deal for this one. That is the reason you check this one out. If you want a spectacular look at what can be done with black metal in 2025, give this band your time and see the force for the No, I can't do that pun, I'm sorry. Let's just say this is an outstanding album. Next up, we have Elder Call with Closure. I've been seeing this band pop up on social media ads for a little bit of time now, and I had to go check this out. This is the debut album from a Nashville band, and you wouldn't expect something of the symphonic melodeath realm to be from Nashville of all places. But they really know how to focus on the melodic side of the heaviest sides of this kind of metal without ever losing its brutality. While the mixing could be polished up, mainly from using drum samples, I see they lost their drummer recently, so that might have had something to do with it. All of that can be fixed in future releases. The songwriting at hand is what seals the deal for a band like this, and it only improves the more that you listen to it. I'm hearing a great mix of Black Dahlia Murder, Insomnium, and Demi Borgir mixed together. I'd also say if you enjoyed the latest album from Faye on Stream, you would really enjoy this one as well. Overall, this is a fun album from an upstart band that is only going to improve with age. See what they're doing now, and get on that hype train right now. Next up, we have Gloombound with Dreaming Delusion. The debut album from this Norwegian funeral doom band almost feels too appropriate in 2025. Their mix of the slowest and most devastating forms of doom metal makes for a soundtrack that hits hard and it never lets up. This feels like a slow dragging of the soul, taking you straight to the grave, and I wouldn't want it any other way in my doom metal. The production is a bit raw and atmospheric, yet still feels full somehow, and that's a really hard thing to achieve. At 5 songs and 43 minutes, this does go by much faster than most bands that you would hear in this genre, so it could be a good gateway into the genre for the uninitiated. But for those who know, and you enjoy the likes of Morgul, Ocean Grave, and Mournful Congregation, you are sure to love, and maybe even shed some tears, listening to Gloombound. Now we have Gods of Tomorrow with their self-titled debut. The debut album from this international band is quite the treat for the melodic side of metal. What feels like a real earnest take on the more rock, metal, and almost power metal ends of heavy music, the band focuses on writing the best riffs and hooks that they can, and they wrap it up in stunning musicianship and songwriting. The production is a little muddy at times, but that kind of adds a little bit of character to the overall product. Whether the band is focusing on the heavier ends of their sound, or making more of a focus on the melody and the harmony, the band can show off that they can be heavy and tender at the same time. If you enjoy the likes of Kiss and Dynamite, Firewind, and even 80s Bon Jovi, yeah, you heard that right, you'll dig what Gods of Tomorrow has to offer. Now we have Honeymoon Suite with Wake Me Up When the Sun Goes Down. The ninth album from this long-running Canadian band is just a feel-good album at a time that we could all use such a thing. The world is on fire, and we could easily use something to make us smile and sing along. That's exactly what Honeymoon Suite delivers once again with their latest album. The band has always been known for their blend of rock, pop, and just enough genre bending to create a sound that'll get you bobbing your head while making your body dance along. The album has some particularly fantastic hooks that only get more infectious on repeated listens. The production feels like pure 80s, and the songwriting has this 2025 sensibility to it all that you just need to hear to understand. If you need a 10-track, 33-minute escape from the horrors of the current world, and again, who couldn't, Honeymoon Suite more than delivers the goods, and they give a great sense of hope. Can you really ask for more right now? Now we have Mandragora Titania with Infabulous. The fourth album, and first since their name change for this German folk metal band, is quite a welcomed experience. 2025 has had some good folk metal this year, but it's still a genre that could always use more, and this band more than delivers the goods. Taking the folk metal genre and adding a nice symphonic feel behind it, and making everything have this nice rich layer of catchiness to it all for such a fun listening experience from beginning to end. The production is exactly what you want for this style, while keeping true to what the genre is all about, and still branching out enough to separate themselves from the pack. If you enjoy the likes of Myth Begotten, In Extremo, and early day Equilibrium, this is a band that you need in your rotation. Please give them a proper listen. Next up, we have Star Force with Beyond the Eternal Night. The debut album from this Mexican speed metal band is one of the most fun albums that I've heard in this genre in 2025. From the astonishing vocal performances to the stellar musicianship and songwriting, this is everything that makes the genre such a great time to listen to. The production is top-tier perfection for the genre, and I can't stress that enough. And every song from the mid-tempo stompers to the all-guns-blazing assaults are exactly what you want. A love of songs, and just about 52.5 minutes might feel a little daunting for speed metal, but it is more than worth the track when you put this on. If you want a band that channels their inner Enforcer, Warlock, and Savage Master, check out what Star Force is all about. Next up, we have Stellar Blight with Eventide, Synod of the Dying Stars. The debut album featuring past and present members of Blaze of Perdition, rest in peace to one of the best bands out there, Shodan, and Owlswood's Graves, is a stunning display of melodeath with just enough of a blackened twist. Every song hits in a way that feels as heavy as any melodeath band out there, but has these moments of melody and harmony that aren't typically explored in the genre, at least to this extent, in a more traditional heavy metal way. The production is right where it needs to be for maximum enjoyment, and all three members that are performing are at their peak performances. Hearing this mix of melodeath, groove, black metal, and heavy metal may not be for everyone, but it is something that I needed in my rotation, and you just might as well. If you enjoy the likes of Latter Day Dissection, At the Gates, and Necrophobic, make sure to check out what Stellar Blight has to offer. I can't imagine you'd be disappointed. And finally today we have Victim of Fire with The Old Lie. The third album from this Denver outfit couldn't be more in my wheelhouse if they tried. They somehow managed to find this perfect balance of 90s melodeath, pure death metal, and crust punk when they go into their fullest extremes, and they pulled off an album that will be stuck in your head for days every time that you give it a spin. The production feels like Slaughter of the Soul, but just if it was a little bit punchier, and the songwriting feels exactly what it needs to be effective. Every time I put this one on, it just gets better and better, and there's no better endorsement of an album than that, is there? If you enjoy everything from Carcass to Dismember to Black Breath, you need Victim of Fire. Go check them out now. First up, we have Castrator with Coronation of the Grotesque. The sophomore album from this NYC band is a battle cry that we need in 2025. With their more than worthy name, Castrator tackles the injustices of the world in a way that only an all-female death metal band can. Feeling like a fusion of Dying Fetus and Cannibal Corpse, this album hits hard not just lyrically, but musically as well. It gets so brutal, but it knows when to show off some killer solos and some melodic passages as well. The production is raw, but it's full of low end, making this a true primal approach. And when you're making this style of death metal, that's exactly what you need. All in all, this is an album that feels almost too appropriate for the times that we live in, but it leaves a lasting impression on all fronts. This is how you make a death metal album stand out by simply being yourselves in 2025. Next up is Chevelle with Bright as Blasphemy. A band I never would have thought I would cover here, But, you know, times have changed. The 10th album from this long-running band from Illinois seems like a gigantic left-of-center leap from when I last heard of them. I'm pretty sure the last time I remember hearing the band, at least of my own accord, is 2011's Hats Off to the Bull, which I can't believe is 14 years ago already. The band has always had that alternative metal, alternative rock, mainstream rock, and basically if Tool played in 4/4 sound to them, and that really hasn't changed, but their approach is vastly different. I hear much more of the metal side coming through, a lot more double bass, kind of like what they used to do in the beginning of the band, but never losing the hook, and I appreciate that so much. Lyrically, the band tackles the highs and lows of life and how we approach it all, and, you know, going down the rabbit hole that we all know so very well. It's a good message, and it makes you second guess how you approach things in life. The production is rich and full, and that's something I always expected from them. If you're like me and lost track of the band after a while and you're curious to see where they are now, give this one a proper listen and see if it's for you. It's cool to see how this band still has enough of an edge, but still staying in the mainstay after all these years on the radio, almost 30 years ago. Next up, we have Insight with Savage New Times. 7 albums and 21 years into this Arizona band's career, the band is at their most varied and most hate-filled right now. In 2025, there's so much to be hated and so many reasons to be angry, and Insight have captured much of that essence here with Savage New Times. From the state of the world to personal matters to inner struggles, they are all here and have an awesome soundtrack to the chaos. The band is exploring so much more musically on this one. It's not just a full-on assault the whole time. There are slower moments that you just don't expect, and vocal performances from Richie Cavalera that are easily the best on any album that he's ever done to date. The production is clear and it hits so hard, which you definitely need on an album that's this bombastic. Insight lists themselves simply as a heavy metal band, and this might be the first album where that title is fully apt. The diversity in sounds and the genre bending makes this one hard to categorize, but nothing feels avant-garde. This is just a hard-hitting album that comes in, blows you away with a little over 32 minutes, and leaves you on the pavement. This is what an Insight album should be in 2025. Now we have Martyr with Dark Believer. Martyr from the Netherlands has been around since 1982, and in those 43 years the band have mastered their style of speed metal, heavy metal, power metal, into a form that simply works from beginning to end. With their 6th album, the band isn't reinventing the wheel, nor should they have to. They are making the classic sounds of heavy metal thrive in 2025, and hitting everything that you'd expect from these classic genres, but updated just enough in the production for 2025 to make a full impact for any listener. If you enjoy the new wave of British heavy metal sound, or you enjoy the likes of bands like Crimson Glory and Sanctuary, you are going to love what Martyr has to offer. The band knows how to go from the highest of levels and back up just enough for breathing room. This is a modern throwback that feels just right, and if you need that as well, put this one on immediately. And finally, for brand new albums out today, we have Unleashed with Fire Upon Your Lands. Unleashed have returned with their 15th album, and somehow their longest break in between albums, only 4 years when you think about it, to create one of the most crushing Viking metal death metal albums of 2025. The band has always had this flair to them where they can be as punishing as possible, but throw in just enough of a hook to keep your interest and level everything in their path. The production on this one is right in balance of clear and raw, without ever going too far into either direction. The songs, while not doing anything jaw-droppingly different, don't need to. Unleashed have always had their signature blend of Scandinavian death metal and just enough of a Floridian death metal sound to make them stand out from the pack, and this is another wonderful display of it all. Sometimes you just want that devastating death metal album, and that's exactly what you're going to get with the brand new album from Unleashed. And now for everything that I missed along the way, starting with the band Act with Eternal Winter. Sweden's Act have returned after 9 years with their 6th album, and it is a whirlwind of prog rock that will hit your soul if you let it. The band continues to explore their style of prog by expanding even further by making the poppier moments even poppier, the heavier moments even heavier, and the prog tropes done in just the right ways. The production is exactly what you want in this style and done to perfection. The album also flies by quickly at under 32.5 minutes, which is a rare feat for most prog rock bands, but not for Act. For those familiar, if you enjoy the likes of Spock's Beard, Marillion, the Flower Kings, and Transatlantic, you need Act in your life, and I mean right now. Next up is a band name that I deeply apologize for getting wrong, but I'm going to try the best that I can. Asuno with Think of You. The third album from this Japanese band is my first foray into the band, but I am loving what I am hearing. This strange on paper but wonderful in execution mix of post-black and post-hardcore, plus a nice healthy mix of J-rock, takes all the genres and makes for a sonic treat from start to finish. The production is stellar, the songwriting is inspired. It is also another album that feels like it flies by at 9 tracks and 36.5 minutes. With this style, it never loses momentum no matter what the tempo is, and it always stays fresh and inspired. If you want to hear a band channeling their inner Death Heaven, Mole, and the 2011 album New Album by Boris, go and discover this band. You would be in for such a treat. Now we have Black Parade with 3. Is it too early to call this the black metal album of the year? Probably, but it is more than worthy to be considered. Having turned the genre of black metal on its ear since 2022, 3 very well may be the best album of Black Parade's career. It hits everything that you love about black metal, but it is done with such finesse and expertise that it easily makes the band a true game changer. Then you mix that black metal with just enough of the Native American folk influences, and it creates a sound that you can hear in other bands like Agalock and Panopticon, but it's not done like this. 3 makes not only a more mature album with more dynamics, but it's also the best songwriting and performances so far in the band. The best production, the perfect album length for a black metal album of the style, just everything that it is that it needs to be, and only improves with every passing listen. If you've never checked out Black Parade before, you need to change that immediately. You don't hear a band like this every day, especially one that will be so instrumental in the evolution of black metal. Catch them now while you're lucky enough to still be a fan as they continue to rise to the stars. Next up we have Kulak with Eidetica. I covered Kulak earlier this year with the mesmerizing album Wayfarer, a phenomenal take on funeral doom, post-black, and progressive metal. But with this new album, it continues that trek, but in a different way. Where the former is much more of that soundtrack style that really builds up that you hear in a lot of doom and post, this album takes more of a prog metal affair, and there's so many nods to classic prog metal but still layer in that post-black and doom and those haunting vocal melodies. This has to be a companion piece to Wayfarer, and from the Bandcamp it definitely does seem to be that way, and it makes so much sense not to be. This is another Kulak album without traditional vocals, and everything is done with vocal melodies and harmonies choir-wise matching the music, proving once again that not everything needs lyrics. The production is just raw enough, but it still hits home, and the songwriting feels like it will drift away even when it gets proggy. Honestly, I can't decide which album I like more, and it's gonna be really hard to make that choice at the end of the year if I don't lump them together as one entry. This is a genre-pushing album that deserves your ears. Give it a proper listen. Next up, we have Firstborn with Lucky. A band featuring past and present members of Lamb of God, Megadeth, Snaked, and Gish in the Chronicles feels like such an eclectic group, and you're not wrong for thinking so. All that said, they have come together to create a true and earnest take on their version of heavy metal that hits just as much for the 80s glam scene as it does for 2000s metal. Don't get me wrong, there's so much throwback on this album, from the bluesy rock riffs to the ballads to the over-the-top guitar solos, and that glorious time that we all know and love from over 40 and getting near 50 years ago. But there are these flares of double bass flourishes and modern takes on songwriting that makes the band work for both young and old heavy music fans. The production is modern, but it still feels right at home with the 80s, and the songwriting is endlessly catchy. Even if some others might find some cheesy moments in it, I really dig it. This is not your typical album that tackles these genres. This is a different approach that just simply works, and if you let it, it'll get stuck in your head for days upon days. Give this a shot if you're feeling just a little bit frisky. Next up, we have Hearts on Fire with Signs and Wonders. A killer display of AOR at its finest in 2025. Featuring a phenomenal vocal talents of Mark Bowles, this is the sophomore album from this group featuring members of Silent Tiger, The Babies, and Magnum. And I can't help but say this is such a fun album from beginning to end. From its excellent production and endlessly catchy songwriting, where everybody shines, this takes everything that you love about AOR and melodic rock and twists it just enough, giving it just a little bit more of a heavier edge, and it works in the best of ways. This is the kind of album that you know exactly what you're gonna get. I mean, come on, look where the band name is. I mean, that kind of gives it away, does it not? But sometimes that's exactly what you need. A hard-hitting, melodic rock AOR album, and showing what rock can still be in 2025. Put this one on, kick back, and enjoy. Now we have Live Sin with Close Your Eyes. Somehow being the heaviest yet catchiest and most varied album to date from Live Sin, her fourth album is an unexpected twist for the former Sister Sin vocalist. This easily has some of the heaviest riffs I've ever heard from her solo work, and some of the most aggressive vocal talents as well, but it still has these moments that remind you of the classic metal sound in all of its glory. The production is polished in just where it needs to be, and the songwriting, while all over the place, does make sense in context to the music. Strangely, the album can jump from Sister Sin to Doro to Otep to Huntress to Arch Enemy, and all of it makes sense, but it's that musical journey that this solo band has led us to, and I'm all for it. This is an active listening album, like you really gotta be paying attention to this one, but it is more than worth the trip. If you want a true showcase of what Live Sin is all about, check out Close Your Eyes. Next up, we have Path to Purgatory with Pathos, the debut album from this Portuguese melodeath band featuring a couple members of Haunted Funeral, whom I just so happened to cover earlier this year, is quite a display of melodeath in 2025. While the production is quite raw, the musical talent more than makes up for any shortcomings that you might have with that. This is a hard-hitting melodeath album that explores both sides of the genre and never loses that intensity in the process. I can hear a lot of Scandinavian melodeath going on with this one, with just enough of their own influences to make the music truly their own. If you enjoyed Haunted Funeral, but you want more of a focused take on the melodeath side of their sound, check out what Path to Purgatory is all about. Up now, we have Rosetta Stone with Dose Makes the Poison. My first foray into this long-running UK band is quite a welcome one. Hitting the style of goth rock and post-punk with just enough dark wave reminds me so much of the first Nightingale album, and I love that album. And of course the legendary bands such as the Sisters of Mercy, but done in their own way. From the signature vocal style that hits that goth style in just the right way, to the drum machine that sounds so satisfying to listen to, and I say that as a drummer, to the 80s influences of the guitar, bass, the synths, make this one intriguing album for those that love the 80s style and need something like it as we enter the fall season for 2025. 11 songs, 37.5 minutes, and exactly what this style should be from beginning to end. Check this one out. Now we have Skies Turn Black with Broken Hearts and Bad Habits. This is one of the strangest yet oddly catchy albums I've come across all year. This is a band that is not afraid to wear their influences on their sleeves and make the music that they want to make. It's not too often I can find a band that hits their inner Iron Maiden, Bullet for My Valentine, Electric Callboy, Hymn, and Carmeria, but here we are. The production could use some tweaking, but the music and its genre-bending mashups more than make up for it. With this being their sophomore album, their first since 2018, you can hear the evolution of their sound, and I couldn't be more curious to see where they go from here. This absolutely won't be for everyone, but for those that are adventurous but still want something very catchy, you really need to give this one a shot. Here we have Technologist with Reborn. The debut album from this Manchester band is a highly infectious slab of progressive death metal that I never could have expected. Hitting moments that remind me of Mutiny Within and Thematic, to some of the heavier ends of bands like Native Construct and even Between the Buried and Me, but all done with this level of class and self-awareness. This is the kind of album that will make you both think musically and on a lyrical level, and to me, those are always the kind of albums that are worth going back to time and time again. From an excellent production style to an album that's just a little over 32 minutes, it gets in with its prog message and it leaves you wanting more. And I can't wait to see what they do next. If you want to see what happens more on the catchier side of progressive death metal, check out what Technologist is all about. Now we have 1000 Below with Buried in Jade. So this is a band that could easily explode into the stratosphere at any moment. Even when you look at their online presence, they have millions of plays on their tracks, and it's very well deserved. Combining the heaviest aspects of second wave metalcore with 2020's modern metal and pop influences is really a winning combination, and can make both sides of the genre border very happy. The production is crystal clear, and the songwriting is written with all lean and mean and no fat on the bone. If you enjoy the likes of bands that I've covered in the past 2 years, such as Awaken I Am, Dreamwake, Siamese, and Dayseeker, you are going to love what 1000 Below is all about. Unless you already know them, then good on you. Now we have 1000 Below with Buried in Jade. So this is a band that could easily explode into the stratosphere at any moment. Even when you look at their online presence, they have millions of plays on their tracks, and it's very well deserved. Combining the heaviest aspects of second wave metalcore with 2020's modern metal and pop influences is really a winning combination, and can make both sides of the genre border very happy. The production is crystal clear, and the songwriting is written with all lean and mean and no fat on the bone. If you enjoy the likes of bands that I've covered in the past 2 years, such as Awaken I Am, Dreamwake, Siamese, and Dayseeker, you are going to love what Thousand Below is all about. Unless you already know them, then good on you. Here we have Tragedy by Design with For the Greater Good. The debut LP from the Seattle band hit me like a ton of bricks, and it hasn't stopped yet. Hitting this balance of the heaviest ends of metalcore with moments of near radio rock with endlessly catchy hooks mixed in with those heavier moments is a winning combination that wins me over more and more with every listen. The vocals can hit from the heaviest metalcore moments to moments that remind me of bands like Dredge and Being. Musically, it'll get stuck in your head, and I'm so happy that it does. The production is nearly perfect, with the screams and growls getting a little buried in some of the tracks, especially if there's screams and growls on the same track, but hey, that's a picky thing. But this is a debut album, so, cut them some slack. If you want something that will remind you of bands like Periphery, Ghost Seeker, The Ghost Inside, and Varia, give Tragedy by Design your proper attention. And finally, we end things with Winter Eve with Birth of Tragedy. How appropriate to do my last review at 36 years old with some gothic death doom. The third album from this French outfit is a devastating piece of gothic death doom that will destroy your soul if you let it. The vocal delivery alone sends chills down your spine from its haunting cleans and demonic screams and growls. This is easily some of the best gothic death doom performances I've heard this year. The production is a bit raw, but this is a DIY affair after all, and it still sounds great despite that. This is an album I can't stop spinning. And if you enjoy the likes of Draconian, Theater of Tragedy, Paradise Lost, and October Tide, do yourself a favor and check out what Winter Eve is all about. After all, it will be winter soon enough. First up, we have Blackbriar with 1,000 Little Deaths. This Dutch band returns for their third album since 2021 with a spectacular display of symphonic gothic metal with their added spices of alternative metal. The band continues to explore their sound, going deeper into heavier territories, but also mainstream territories at the same time. The orchestration feels richer and grander than ever before, and the songwriting somehow trims off even more fat, leaving just this most lean and mean song structures they can possibly make. No song goes over the 4-minute and 40-second mark, leaving room for all 10 tracks to fly by in no time flat. The production is the best the band has ever had to date, and the band feels like they are at their strongest point so far. This is the Blackbriar album to check out first, and go backwards from here to see what the band is all about. Overall, if you're finding out about this band for the first time, or you've been a long-time fan, I really do feel like this is a very earnest, whimsical, and satisfying album, and possibly their best to date. Give this album a proper listen if you enjoy the likes of Elaine, Cellar Darling, and Serenia. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Next up, we have Crop with SSRI. The sophomore album from this Kentucky band is such an intriguing mix of doom and grunge that I didn't even know was possible. The two subgenres have a lot of similarities at their core. Tempo's obviously different most of the time, but the tones produced and the heartache attached bring everything together. This is what happens here with Crop. It is an emotional roller coaster of an album that hits so many traumatic and sadly relatable lyricals, moments behind a backdrop that hits a level of Alice in Chains meets Hangman's Chair meets Conan. It's not a combination that'll work for everyone, but for those that it does, it will hit you like a tsunami, but it'll leave you wanting more. I'm usually quite picky with bands that are more associated with the stoner doom style, so if I'm recommending it, that means it's one of the best of the year in the genre. Give this one a spin and prepare to be floored. Now we have Crown with Wonderland. The third album from the Swedish powerhouse, featuring past and present members of Europe, Art Nation, Dynasty, The Poodles, and Heat, is a phenomenal display of songwriting and musicianship, taking the best of their past and present works to create a sound that hits just as hard for longtime rock and metal fans as it does those discovering the genre for the first time, and that is no easy feat to achieve, but that's exactly what happens here. The album is filled with such catchiness that it feels like it is tailor-made for the European festival circuit, going from classic rock hard riffs to near power metal moments, and some modern metal elements going on as well. It just sounds like it would be one of the most fun live shows that you could ever witness. Backed with a powerful production style, you have a band that is meant for anyone who enjoys the bands that all these members have been a part of, but are looking for something new. What a stunning display from beginning to end. Now we have Dragonclaw with Moving Target. The third album since 2010 from this Australian band finds this right balance of the lighter and heavier ends of what power metal can be. The album hits the fine line of making songs that feel like they could work well in the 80s era of AOR melodic metal, as it does for bands like Jagdpanzer and Vicious Rumors, with a striking balance of powerful and clean production styles, and the songwriting that never goes out of range and it hits you time and time again. This is an album that I keep going back to, and I keep finding more and more to like like about it because it just keeps getting better and better with every listen. If you're looking for something of the style of the power metal, AOR, melodic metal styles, you need to check out what Dragonclaw is all about. Next up, we have Hundreds of AU, or Hundreds of AU, depending on your pronunciation, with Life in Parallel. The fourth album from this New Jersey outfit is a hard-hitting but effective piece of mathcore, screamo, and post-hardcore that may feel like it's for a particular type of listener, but it does have a broader appeal than one may think. It's this grand concoction of 90s through current-day genres that hit from some of the most chaotic moments that you can imagine, but it's also done in a comprehensible way that feels satisfying to the ears despite everything going on around you. The production is full and layered, especially for an album like this. It should be that way. And the songwriting can go all over the place, but it never goes too far into left field. If you're looking for something that feels comprehensible in a way of bands like The Fall of Troy, Every Time I Die, Thursday, and Boy Sets Fire, this band is meant for you. Now we have Jack the Joker with The Devil to Pay in the Backlands. The third album from this Brazilian progressive metal band feels like Brazil's answer to if you mix Symphony X and Haken together. It's a whirlwind of an album that explores the highs and lows of progressive metal, with everyone in the band showing off their chops and, more importantly, their songwriting skills. The production is just raw enough to feel human amongst all the prog chaos on display. I can easily see this band becoming one of the biggest bands of the 2020s prog scene and beyond with this release, let alone where the band goes from here. If you like your prog over the top but still filled to the brim with heart, Jack the Joker is anything but a no, I can't do that pun. Let's just say this is one of the best prog albums of 2025, bar none. Next up, we have Mob Rules with Rise of the Ruler. Mob Rules returns with their 11th album since 1999, and it feels like the band has never lost a step. The German melodic power metal band has always had their signature sound, changing things just enough to never sound like a carbon copy of their previous work, but never losing what made them stand out to begin with 26 years ago. The production fits like a glove, and the band hits everything you love from them, from their songwriting, the earworm solos, the insane vocal ranges, to just rocking enough, and just heavy enough sound that can't be topped in this style. If you somehow have never heard this band before, you are missing out. This is easily for anyone who enjoys the likes of Hammerfall, Gamma Ray, and Stradivarius. The Mob Rules still rule after all this time. Check out Rise of the Ruler. Next up, we have Old Machines with The Cycles of Extinction. The debut album from this Portland outfit is one of the most intriguing pieces of symphonic black metal I've heard all year and beyond. While having this defining sound of symphonic black metal, the band also explores progressive, avant-garde, and futuristic tendencies you don't normally hear in this genre. The production is quite raw and blistering, and it does give off this mid-90s black metal production style that many will find rewarding. It feels like this unholy mix of Balsagoth, Limbionic art, and Isan's solo work fused to make a new era for the genre in 2025. I can't say this will be for everyone, but if you're looking for that classic yet present day but also futuristic look at symphonic black metal, you should give this one your proper attention. Now we have Reinforcer with Ice and Death. The sophomore album from this German band is my first foray into the band, but I am no less floored by what I'm hearing. What a stunning display of how to make heavy and melodic power metal together. The songwriting cuts like a knife and the production value feels classic but authentic. Everyone shines on this album, and you can hear that with the more spins that you give this one. It flies by at just 9 songs, but it has this instant replay value for anyone who enjoys the likes of Blind Guardian, Powerwolf, Maiden, and sadly, Iced Earth as well. For any fan of power metal, you need to give this one your proper attention. Now we have Rust and Rage with Songs of Yesterday. The sophomore album from this Finnish AOR band feels like a modern step forward for the genre. While still maintaining the classic sounds of bands like Dokken, Kiss and Dynamite, Danger Danger, and Crash Diet, the band is forging their own path, with just enough modern influences to pay tribute to the past, but still hit hard for the 2020s fanbase. The production pounds, and it's so punchy, and the songwriting is endlessly catchy. This album feels like a time warp of the past and the present in all of the right ways, and that's exactly what this genre needs. If this sounds like something that would be for you, trust me, it will be. Go and pick this one up. Now we have Skull Revenge with State of Oblivion. The debut album from the Swedish outfit is such a rewarding experience for those who enjoy the melodic and heavy metal side of power metal, featuring guest appearances from the likes of vocalists from Narnia, Therion, MOB, and more. This is an album that pays tribute to their heroes, but still forges their own path in what can be done in this style. The production hits hard, while the songwriting hits this level of catchy that gets more and more satisfying with every spin. If you want a band who hits those levels of bands like the aforementioned Narnia, Avantasia, Dream Evil, Metal, and Therion. Go give this one some proper love. This might go under the radar, but seriously, this one is more than worth checking out. Now we have Visitant with Rubidium. The debut album from this Floridian band featuring members of Abiotic and Accursed Creator is an album for the ages, combining a passion of melodeath, death metal, symphonic black metal, and more all rolled into one is no easy thing to achieve without sounding like a hodgepodge, but the band does it in what sounds like such magnificent ease. The production is spellbinding with how powerful and clear everything comes off, and the songwriting keeps you on the edge of your seat from beginning to end. This is how you create a new path forward, all while paying tribute to your influences along the way. If you want to mix a Naglfar, Arsis, the Black Dahlia Murder, and yeah, even some Opeth, go check out what this band is all about in all of their glory. And finally, for brand new albums out today, we have White Mantis with Arrows of the Sun. The sophomore album from this German thrash band is an excellent display of mixing the German and American styles of thrash together for the greater good. From its raw but effective production style to the songwriting that goes all over the place but never loses its intensity, White Mantis is pushing the envelope of what thrash can still be in 2025. The album flies by so fast that you may not even realize it's over when it is, but that's all the more reason to go back and spin it once again. This is for anyone who's looking for an unholy mix of Sodom, Creator, Warbringer, and Exodus with their own blend of herbs and spices to fill out that sound. If you are a thrash fan, you deserve an album like this. And if you want a boundary-pushing album of thrash, check out what's possible with the latest album from White Mantis. And now for everything that I missed, starting with Burnt Tapes and New Lungs. The sophomore album from this UK band hit me like a tidal wave of emotions, and all I want is more. Too heavy to be indie rock, not heavy enough to be hardcore, Burnt Tapes hits this fine line of indie punk that knows how to focus on the emotional side of the genre while still showing off their songwriting and musicianship. The closest comparison I can make, as I'm not really well versed in the genre, is the band's Spanish love songs, and that is a very good thing to me. At 10 tracks and 30.5 minutes, this will come in with songs that speak true to the state of the world, personal endeavors, and more, and leave you potentially as an emotional wreck. And you know what? I wouldn't want it any other way. Now we have Haunt with Ignite, the 11th album from Trevor William Church, and released on his birthday no less, back on August 13th, is a stunning look at the state of the world in a very personal way. This album is filled with emotion that seems to hit just extra hard in these times that we're living in, and it feels quite, well, there's no other way to put it, lonely. Especially the back half of the album feels like some of the most personal and emotionally driven songs Haunt has ever recorded. The first half is not without its charm though, as it has more of that traditional songs that you would expect from the band. The production carries over from their previous album, 2024's Dreamers, and it sounds incredible. I love this production style, and Trevor, if you're listening, please never lose this production style ever again. The songwriting is lean and mean, and no song is over the 4-minute mark. I love my heavy metal and revive metal fun, but this is not a fun album. This is a serious album that strikes hard at the soul and at the world that we live in, and honestly, I wouldn't want it any other way. Is this the best Haunt album yet? There's an argument to be made. Maybe it's a little too early to make that claim, but it is, without question, one of the best straight-up heavy metal albums of the year, and that is something that we all deserve to have in our lives. Next up, we have the Lucidia Project with The Twilight Affliction. The debut album from this Fargo band is not something I would have expected from a neighboring state of mine, but I couldn't be happier that it exists. Combining elements that feel like that they shouldn't really blend together on an album like this, but it simply works from beginning to end. The album primarily focuses on more of an alternative rock, alternative metal, symphonic metal sound that hits at the right kind of death doom, and it makes the music even more powerful. Every song is catchy in its own way, whether it goes into almost radio rock territory or the deepest recesses of what death doom could be. Imagine a band that combines the Last Fair Deal, Gone Down era of Catatonia, mixed in with some Dark Tranquility, and a healthy heap of Camelot. And you have a band that may not be for everyone, but it's definitely for me. If you want something like this, you owe it to yourself to check this one out. Next up, we have Madhouse, or Modhouse, because it has little dots over the A, it all depends on your pronunciation, with Plead the Fifth, one of the most fun glam albums of 2025, and that is not a sentence you often read anymore, as the heyday of the genre was well over 40 years ago. But thankfully, there are bands like Madhouse that want nothing more than to bring back that sleazy, dirty, and fun style of heavy metal back into the world without making it feel like a gigantic meme, and you know those bands that I'm talking about. The fourth album from this German band does nothing revolutionary, and they don't need to reinvent the wheel. This is just a fun, forward-of-the-floor rock from yesteryear album updated enough with 2025 production and filled to the brim with killer songwriting and musicianship. If you love the likes of Rat, Skid Row, Whitesnake, and Warrant, you will love everything that Madhouse brings to the table. Now we have Panopticon with Laurentian Blue. The 11th album from Austin Lunn is technically the first full-on take of full-on folk, acoustic, and Americana for a full-on album. The first came with part 2 of The Scars of Man on the Once Nameless Wilderness 1 and 2, as that was on disc 2, but that was only half of that double disc album. And this is also a companion piece to the masterpiece that is 2021's And Again Into the Light. It's an album of sheer beauty, but it will tear your soul apart musically and lyrically. It's an isolating album that feels like it was written about the winters of northern Minnesota, and once you know it, that's exactly what the album is about. If the counter album is about the rest of the year in Minnesota, this is by far the winter album. I have a bit of a bias when it comes to Panopticon, as they're one of my favorite bands of all time, and I also happen to live in the same state, and so many of their songs, from Roads to the North onward, feel so relatable on an emotional level, as I was raised around the areas that are talked about, and it just reminds me of both the good and the bad times from the past and the present. This album feels like a full-on tearjerker from the music alone, and while if you are just a die-hard rock or metal fan and can't appreciate the album that goes into this kind of style, I won't condemn you for that, but I will say you should release your preconceived notions and give this one a proper listen, as you may find out you really enjoy the music. Without question, this is my favorite non-metal album of the year, and it's a great representation of rustic Minnesota in 2025. Now we have Perpetual Paradox with Death Wish. The debut album from this UK band is some of the heaviest metalcore that I've heard all year, from its subject matter to the breakdowns and the overall atmosphere on display. This is an album that has a mission statement, and that statement is showing off what is capable of metal in 2025, hitting the extremes of the genre with an impeccable production style and a songwriting that knows when to keep things simple and when to explore what is possible. I can hear everything from Unearthed to Lorna Shore to Fit to an Autopsy, and once you know it, I hear an inspired Megadeth riff or two in here for good measure. This is one of the most inspired and heavy albums in metalcore I've heard all year, and they know how to hold your attention for all 8 songs and almost 28 minutes in length. It comes in, tears you apart, and leaves you wanting more. This would be the perfect set for an opening slot, but at this rate, I don't think they're going to be an opener for much longer. I'm eagerly awaiting to see what happens on album 2 and everything that it has in store. And finally, we have Warman with Band of Brothers. The 7th album and second since the rebirth of Yanni and Auntie Warman's musical endeavor returns with a rejuvenated sound and life for everyone involved. Let's face it, the demise of Children of Bodom left so many people wishing for that sound back, and who better than 2 of the people that helped start that kind of sound bring this project back and make it from a full-on shred band into a full-on melodeath and power metal band. Now, knowing the direction of Warman going forward, the band is having that thick layer of Children of Bodom sound to them, but are still able to shred in the right moments, and they still have those hints of the old style intact. You can hear elements of the other band members as well, such as in Sephirum and Norther, but you also hear nods of Stradivarius and Johansson. Overall, this is an album that feels familiar, especially if you are a Children of Bodom fan, but they are still pushing forward in their own direction, and now that the fire is fully back, I'm excited to see where the future of Warman has in store for us all. First up, we have Adore with We Failed to Love Ourselves. And if that's not true, the debut album from this hard-hitting UK band is for the heaviest of the sludge-layered post-metal fans out there. Featuring past and present members of Gravelines, Aerosol Jesus, Johnny Trant, and Sea Bastard, Adore finds a way to combine the best elements of these genres with an added sense of doom to make the music feel like it is thickening around you and you're about to succumb to all of its power. While many of the songs are slower, and there are occasional mid-tempo to even fast riffs that break the tension, that also brings a more chaotic feel to it all, adding so much dynamics into the sound. While production is right where it needs to be with a band like this, and the songwriting is executed in a way that never lingers too long in a particular lift, it will still make you feel like you're frozen in its mist. For those who enjoy the heaviest ends of the Ocean and Mastodon, while adding flares of Cult of Luna, Converge, and Botch, you should give this one a proper shot. Now we have Darker Half with Book of Fate. The Australian band's 5th album is a proper showcase of what can be done when you write some of the catchiest riffs in melodic metal, but still have this power metal tinge to it all. While the band started off as more of a thrash band, the band has become more of a power metal and melodic metal band, and that really works in their favor. The production is pure 80s, and the songwriting, while it does show off some chops, is all about writing the best material possible as lean as possible. This is much more for those who enjoy the likes of Dokken, Giants, and yeah, even Iron Maiden. Overall, the slow shift in sound is exactly what the band needed, and it makes the band enjoyable time and time again. If you need your 80s fix, check this one out. Up now we have Headless with Transitional Objects. The fourth album from this Italian band is such an infectious piece of progressive rock, hard rock, and AOR. The band can get as heavy as Megadeth, they even do a cover I Thought I Knew It All, but they also add these proggy moments that would make any Fates Warning or Queensryche fan very happy, and you add a little bit of AOR moments that any 80s fan will be drooling over, and you have Headless. It's a grand mix of it all, while never sounding like they're ripping anybody off. The production is nice and punchy, and the songwriting can go from straight ahead to wacky prog riffs, and it'll still fit like a glove. This is an album for those who truly appreciate that late 80s to mid 90s sound of heavy music, and it feels tailor-made for someone of my taste. Headless is for anyone who misses those glory days, but want it updated just enough for 2025. This is incredible work. Next up, we have Helloween with Giants and Monsters. Helloween have returned with their second album of this all-star lineup and their 19th album overall. The renewed energy of the band since getting back together with all three vocalists doing their best work, and it's showing off all of the greatest tendencies that make a longtime fan of Helloween like myself very happy. The band goes into three forms on the album: the fast and heavy power metal side, the mid-tempo stompers of their arena rock sound, and the heavy hard rock sound that fills in between. Seeing the band showcase everything they can do and still make it sound authentic is a hard thing to accomplish, especially with this many albums into their career, but I dare say they are still making some of the best music that they ever have made. And I'll even go one further and say Giants on the Run might be my favorite Helloween song ever. They have been doing such an incredible job since their self-titled album, and if you enjoyed that album, you're going to love everything Helloween has in store for you with this particular album. It is fantastic from beginning to end. Next up is a band I think is pronounced IHLO, I-H-L-O, with Legacy. The sophomore album from this UK prog band is such a tight and unique experience. The band can hit some of the most melodic moments you've heard in progressive metal in 2025, and then balance it out with some of those crushing elements of the genre to make this a perfect blend. While most of the songs are on the longer side for the average listener, and pretty short for the average prog fan, the band never feels like it is meandering or losing grasp of the point. Everything on here is done with such a fine point to it all, and it makes for much more memorable experience every time you listen to it. The production is crystal clear and the songwriting and musicianship is top notch. This is a band that knows when to show off and when to play for the song. If you enjoy the likes of Distorted Harmony, and please come back, Textures, Vola, and of course Haken, this is a band that you need in your life right now. Next up is Imperishable with Revelation in Purity. This is the second band I've covered this year with the name Imperishable, but this time it's coming straight out of the US, featuring Brian Kingsland of Nile, Derek Roddy of so many bands, but he did play a few tracks on Nile's Black Seed of Vengeance, and Alex Rush of the band Zale. This band feels like early day Nile meets a more blackened edge to it all, with a heavy dose of Hate Eternal. The production is more on the raw end of things, so it really will remind you of those late 90s, early 2000s styles of tech death and death metal. The songwriting is blistering, but it's also comprehensible. It also blazes by so quickly at 7 songs and a little over 32 minutes long. It gives you that late 90s, early 2000s love letter to tech death and black and death metal, with just enough herbs and spices to make it their own thing in 2025. If you miss those days, you need to hear what Imperishable is all about. Up next is Ivy Gardens with Death of Dawn Valley. The sophomore album from this Canadian band is an intriguing mix of progressive and stoner doom that still blows me away time and time again, even if this will be your first listen today. In what feels like a wild concoction of King Crimson, Mastodon, Caius, and The Sword, Ivy Gardens has taken their influences and created a form of progressive stoner metal that is endlessly fun to listen to, and you'll be able to explore more of their sound every time that you turn them up on your speakers. The music is too sporadic to be straight up stoner, and all the fuzz all over the place makes it much more than just your typical prog rock album. It's the kind of album that you put on and want to explore everything that it has to offer. The production is this fine line between raw and polished that can only be described as human, and the songwriting can be wacky, but it is done in the best of ways. This won't be everyone's bag, but if you want to hear how to properly mix these genres together in a very innovative way, check out Ivy Gardens and all that their music has to offer you. Now we have Kanum with Cosmo Crater, the fourth album into this German band's career, and they're creating some death-defying displays of death metal. The production is raw, but it has this early 90s death metal feel in the best of ways. And the songwriting, I can hear everything from Death and Morbid Angel and Immolation, along with some other influences to make the music stand out on its own. This is the kind of death metal that instantly grabs your attention and keeps it for all 7 tracks. There's a brief instrumental in the middle that gives you a little bit of breathing room before you get pummeled all over again. Otherwise, this album is one of the finest displays of death metal that's just different enough to grab your attention and to show you what the genre is all about in 2025. And if you want that, see what Kanoom has in store for you. Next up, we have Pink Shift with Earthkeeper. The sophomore album from this up-and-coming band is an album that is sure to bring a lot of fire to their sound and the world that we live in today. It is an angry display of what we have done to the world and what a short time that we have left. Using everything from its resources to how we treat each other to how we treat ourselves is on full display here, and it's quite the cathartic look. You match that up with the alternative metal sound that hits everything from radio rock to more Slipknot tendencies to this unexpected pop-punk sound that at least I didn't see it coming. It's a band with so many layers and with a great message. I will never go as far to say that this will be for everyone, especially for those who normally check out the list that I do, but this is an album that feels like a battle cry for trying to salvage what we have left of the world and for ourselves. If that's not enough to give it a spin, I don't know what else I could possibly say that would. If you have an open mind, give this one a listen. Now we have Rising Steel with Legion of the Grave. The fourth album from this French heavy metal band hits everything that you love about metal of yesteryear, but done in 2025. From the vocals that will remind you from everything from Messiah of Candlemass to Rob Halford of Priest, to the musicianship that feels as tight and as memorable as Maiden and Priest, while still having this flair to it all that reminds me so much of bands like Riot, Manila Road, and Candlemass. It's a dark album, especially in its themes, and it will hit right at home for those who enjoy the new wave of British heavy metal sound mixed in with other influences that make it not sound like a carbon copy band. A lot of the proto-metal, proto-doom, doom, and proto-power metal. If you want some authentic heavy metal, you can't do much better than Rising Steel. Now we have Salu with Night. There has been an influx of bands that are capturing that Nordic folk sound that is nearly metal over the past several years, but I've yet to hear one who's done it quite like what Salu has brought to the table. The sixth album from this outfit is such a dynamic and emotional journey of an album that hits in all the right ways. It can hit you so hard with some heavier elements, but sweep you away with its captivating and warlike anthemic sounds that can only be truly appreciated by just giving this album a spin. The production is pitch perfect, and the songwriting feels like it's a true soundscape to yesteryear. Of course, there are bands like Fawn, Heliong, and Wardruna who have done this style, but none of them have done it like Salu. Give this one your full attention and proceed to drift away into that endless ocean. Now we have Ursa Wrath with Emergence. The debut album from the Seattle band is quite the punch of progressive, thrash, and almost black metal elements. It feels like Goatwhore if they were a little proggier. It feels like Power Trip if they embraced more of their evil tendencies. It's a great combination. The band has also occasionally hit these more sludgy moments that you just don't see coming, especially on that first listen. But they hit you just as hard as anything that you would hear from the likes of Pallbearer or even Thou. You mix all of this into a raw but punchy production style, and you have an album that more than lives up to its title. The album emerges and feels like it will destroy you. If you want to hear a mix of these genres done in a very earnest way, see what Ursa Wrath has in store. It's quite a mighty fine mix. And finally, for brand new albums out today, we have Vicious Rumors with The Devil's Asylum. The 14th album from this long-running US band is easily some of the best work Vicious Rumors has ever done. Their mix of heavy metal, power metal, and just enough groove and other tendencies will always make this band stand out, and has helped them last as long as they have as well, 40 years since their debut album. Of course, that comes with a lot of lineup changes, and this time around they have 3/5 of a new lineup, but that helps update the sound just enough to make this new. The core sound has never left the band, but the band knows when to shift just enough not to make the same album twice. The production is stellar, and it's just what this style needs. The band has always conquered everything from the turbo era of Judas Priest to the heaviest ends of power thrash to the mid-tempo stompers that feel like arena anthems. All of that and more are here on display. One of the most underappreciated bands of the style is back in 2025 with an incredible take on The Devil's Asylum. Whether you've heard them 40 years ago or you're hearing about them for the first time now, give them a shot and see what this does for you. And now it's time for everything that I've missed along the way, starting with Basque and The Turning. The fourth album from the South Carolina band is my first foray into the band, but I fell in love with the sound. In what feels like a haunted and evil mix of Americana, indie rock, and southern doom, Basque is creating a unique sound that gives me hope for what can be done when you continue to genre bend. I can hear Baroness, Pallbearer, Yes, and even some indie rock and Americana thrown together to create a sound that is uniquely their own, and it takes you on a journey that you simply don't expect if you're not familiar familiar with this. I'd love to see these guys do a tour with a band like Panopticon or Wayfarer. I think there's enough differences between all of them, but they are similar enough to make for a very exciting night of music. The production is top-notch and the songwriting is dynamic and ever-branching. This is an album that won't be for everyone, but for those who want to explore what heavy music can be, you need to check out what Basque is all about immediately. Now we have Burning Witches with Inquisition. The sixth album from this incredible display of a heavy metal band has returned, and they have made their most intense album to date. Truly living up to their name, this album burns everything in its path. Whether they're paying tribute to the new wave of British heavy metal, or going full guns blazing in their power metal tendencies, or getting near the death and black metal territory with its brutality, the band continues to refine and improve with every album, and this is far from an exception. This is the first album to feature Courtney Cox, no, not that one, on guitar, as a full member of the band, showcasing everything that she's capable of, but done in a new light. The production pounds and the songwriting feels so fresh and inspired. If you've never checked out the band before, this is the perfect starter album. For everyone else, this is the most intense album the band has ever had, and I can feel that they are going to continue what heavy truly can be. Go pick this one up. Now we have Devolver with Non Compos Mentis. The sophomore album from this Canadian band is the perfect blend of melodeath and metalcore, much like chocolate and peanut butter. This takes the best aspects of both genres, makes enough changes to feel authentic, and creates a sound that hits just as much in 2025 as it would have back in 2005. The production is brutal but still audible and filled with layers. The songwriting shows off the capabilities of everyone in the band, but it doesn't reveal all of its tricks. Overall, this is for anyone who enjoys everything from 90s era In Flames, to 2000s Soilwork, to later 2000s Lamb of God, to the modern day capabilities of what melodeath and metalcore are all about. This is a great trip back in time, but also a look forward to what can be done. This is excellent stuff. Next up is a band name that I truly apologize for getting wrong, but I know I'm going to despite having some German ancestry. This is Führerschwanz with Nightclub. In all honesty, despite being around for over 20 years and having 13 albums now, this is the first time I've actually checked out this German folk metal band. I didn't realize how much of a smile I would have when listening to this album. While there are folk metal bands that are dead serious, and I love those bands, there are folk metal bands that are also just in it for the memes as well, and you know who they are. This band feels like a fine line in between both, where the music is filled with fun and hilarious moments, but the music is done with such a finesse and authenticity that doesn't make it feel like a clickbait band. They are the real deal despite having fun, which is a hard thing to pull off. For example, I was not expecting them to have duets with Lords of the Lost and Doro on this one, and even more so, I never would have expected to cover a frickin' Gangnam Style on here either. The production is extremely polished and full, and the songwriting, whether it's a cover or not, feels like it's exactly what it should be without going overboard. Overall, this band is all about fun and not taking themselves so seriously, but making sure that the music is serious. If you want a fun experience when it comes to folk metal, check out what this band has to offer. You may have found your new favorite experience when it comes to folk metal. Next up, we have Hammer King with Make Metal Royal Again. The fifth album from this German power metal band is such a treat of an album. What feels like such a great tongue-in-cheek reference to, well, you know, I shouldn't have to spell it out for you. Hammer King returns with their blend of endlessly catchy, but profound and anthemic songs. The production is perfect for the style, and the songwriting is lean, mean, and gives you just enough to have a smile to know what's going on. This is an argument that this might be the best Hammer King album to date, and I would arguably have to agree. This has everything I love about the band, but it's even more refined and profound. If you enjoy your power metal about kings, both in the sky and ones who think of themselves as kings, check out what Hammer King has to offer in all of their glory. Now we have Judgment Fire with Forever Crimson Dawn. After discovering this band last year with Kingdom of Skyscrapers, Judgment Fire has returned with their fourth album in 2 years. And no, they're not an AI band. The band continues to explore more of their melodeath side with just enough of the gothic metal tendencies that makes the band truly stand out to me. The production is just raw enough without losing any of the polish, and the songwriting is rich and very inspired. With 10 songs and almost 43.5 minutes of music on display, this is an album that feels like the perfect length for anyone who's looking for a genre-bending band and knows how to do it in the best of ways to hit both extremes, but still be catchy. If you've never heard this band before, and you want to hear what melodeath and gothic metal can sound like together, this is the perfect album to start with, as it contains all of their best elements into one tight package. Give this one a spin, as Judgment Fire is more than worthy of your time. And finally today we have Mono Inc. with Darkness. The 13th album from this long-running German gothic band is also my first foray into this band, but I instantly fell in love with what they're doing, and I'm happy that I have 12 other albums to go check out now. This is my kind of straight-up gothic where the music doesn't need to just be dreary and sad the whole time, despite it being very dark and fun to listen to. The production is picture perfect, and the songwriting is endlessly inspired. It can get quite dark, but when you can still make it be very head-bobbing and it keeps your attention for all 12 songs in almost 47 minutes, you have to be doing something right. But if you want a band that sounds like Lord of the Lost, Blunt Ungle, and the goth side of Moonsorrow, give Mono Inc. your proper attention. I think you're going to love what you hear.